Welcome to another episode of Psychic Sunday. I am your host, Reverend Erin-Ashley, the founder of spiritualmechanic.com. Okay, today we're going to talk about spiritual responsibility. And before we dive in, today I'm talking about your own ownership over your own body-mind. We're not necessarily diving into ethics today, though if you want me to create a video about spiritual ethics and our responsibility to one another, then please do let me know so that I can put that on the slate to be created. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in, keeping in mind this is about personal ownership, not ethics. Okay, so in this video, you're going to learn the definition of spiritual responsibility, again, as ownership of self. Again, we're not getting into ethics, how spiritual responsibility assists in your alignment, how to opt out of the blame and shame game, and some wonderful questions to ask yourself in order to foster spiritual responsibility. So first, let's start with the definition. This is really helpful, so it'll help you orient with what we want to talk about today. Spiritual responsibility is the ability for you to be fully present with your body-mind system while you consciously choose your response to whatever is going on within and around you. So when we're talking about responsibility today, we're talking about your ability to choose your response to what's happening within you and around you. So a few things of note. The first thing that I want to say is I kind of want to bust a myth that happens in spiritual circles. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. I'm really not a fan of the term negative emotion because all of a sudden we start polarizing the human experience and we put a huge part of our life's experience into bad emotions or negative emotions. And then we spend time trying to avoid those emotions, and it's really easy to get into denial. So there's no such thing as a bad emotion, and acceptance is one of the highest vibrational states that we can be in. So if we are in a state of being that is acceptance, then if we have anxiety or fear or anger or grief, then we can still be in a vibrationally high state, even with a quote unquote bad emotion. And choosing your response to what is going on within you and around you requires honoring emotions, thoughts, memories, and internal reactions without necessarily buying into them. So what I mean by that is if you have an experience, let's say someone says something mean to you on the internet, right? They call you a name and you feel hurt. You have the emotion of hurt and you start having a thought that, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm a terrible person, blah, blah, blah. Whenever you are in spiritual responsibility, you are in the state of saying, okay, I feel hurt. There's a part of me that's blaming myself for this, but I know that may not necessarily be the spiritual truth here. That may not actually be truth with a capital T. It's simply something I'm experiencing in this moment. Denial is not supportive to your highest good, health, wealth, or happiness. So it's really important that you start with what you are experiencing in the moment, so that you can be open to the possibilities and the richness of your experience and stay in the driver's seat. And if you stay in denial, by the way, it becomes very easy to start sabotaging your growth because if you're in denial, you aren't able to correctly assess what's happening within you or around you. Okay, so how spiritual responsibility assists your alignment. Again, just a quick recap of the definition. Spiritual responsibility is the ability to be fully present with your body-mind system while you consciously choose your response to what's going on within and around you. You are a spiritual being inhabiting a meat suit, right? So you are the spirit. I'm talking to the spirit. I'm not necessarily talking to your body-mind. I'm talking to the spirit that inhabits it. So your job is to stay as present as possible so that you can choose how you wish to direct the body you live in as you receive feedback from your body-mind system and the environment in which you are, right? So this lets you stay in control as best you can. In life interactions, whether it's other people or your heart-centered goals or your aspirations, this allows you to make sure that the impact that you wish to have and the impact that you do have are congruent. So if there's a skill that you need to acquire, that will become evident. If there's a belief that's rattling around that's keeping you from living the life that you feel called to live, that will become evident because the impact that you have will not match the impact that your heart desires to have, right? Okay. And if you understand that they're not quite congruent yet, and you stay in that state of spiritual responsibility and ownership, then you can explore why that is and what you can do about it. So a quick beginner mistake alert. There is a huge difference between what you can directly control and what you can influence. You, in general, will have far less direct control than you may like. However, you are likely to have far more influence than you give yourself credit for. So this means that if you try to control other people, exactly what time things happen down to the minute or the millisecond, it may or may not work out perfectly. However, you have a lot of influence, right? So it means that you can create the best environment for success. You can do everything that you can in order to influence your manifestations, the things that your heart desires, but you can release yourself from that desire to have perfect control all the time. Okay, so opting out of the shame and blame game. So shame and blame is very common in our culture, and some of it, sometimes accountability gets mislabeled as blame, and that's not what I'm not talking about healthy accountability here. We're talking about, first off, denial. Sometimes we stay in denial because we will feel shame or embarrassment, or we'll start to say that we are bad if we are being, doing, or having something, right? And so if we feel like our heart's desire is to earn more money, and we have decided that everyone who earns a certain amount of money is somehow bad, then we might have a sense of shame over that heart's desire goal, right? And so it's easier to stay in denial. That's not really what we truly want, even if it is, because it keeps us in a space where we don't have to confront those internal stories. Okay. And this is really important, there are times in our human bodies when the human body and the spirit living in it will be victimized. It can happen. So while it is true that we can be victimized, spiritual responsibility means that as best we can, we are focusing the majority of our energy on our chosen responses to what is. And so this includes holding others accountable if they have done something harmful, or maybe we need to have a conversation with someone if we feel there's conflict or unspoken truths that are asking to be let out or communicated or shared. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that we pretend like things aren't happening that are happening. It means that we are creating the space to choose to go into that rather than automatically going to a blaming someone for something. And it gives us more options. It allows us to stay in our center. So here's some great questions to ask yourself, especially if you struggle with taking appropriate, healthy responsibility. Then you want to start with, what's your current experience? And you'll want to start from a place that there's no such thing as a wrong answer here. It doesn't matter if it's riddled with negative beliefs or anything else. In fact, if it is riddled with negative beliefs, that's a really rich opportunity for you. It'll give you a chance to start healing those. So start with your current experience, right? Anything that is true for you right now. And then what are you making it mean about yourself? And go ahead and do a little bit more reflection. Whenever you look at what are you making it mean about yourself, do a check-in. Is this spiritually accurate? Is it true with a capital T? Or is there something else that it could mean? What does your heart desire? What do you want? What do you have direct control over in this situation? And what do you have influence but not necessarily control over? How does this situation and your response fit in with your plans, your heart's desires, and your values? And what does your intuition say about this experience? And what are the next steps that resonate with you the most? Okay, so I hope you got a lot out of this episode. Thank you so much for watching about spiritual responsibility, basically, owning your own experience. And please do comment with any of your thoughts, feelings, and if you would like me to do an episode about the ethics of spirituality, then go ahead and let me know, because that's something that I've been considering doing for a while. So just hit me up, let me know, and I will see you next week.